You know what would be awesome in an automotive shop? A welding machine that can handle everything. When it comes to these newer inverter style machines that claim to be multi-process, the question remains, can they truly do it all? Well, today we've got a machine to show you that claims to be able to do just that. Stick around. What's up, guys, and welcome to In the Shop TV. My name is Mike, and for a lot of you guys have been watching for a long time, you know I've had kind of a long-standing relationship with Arccaptain welding machines. They've sent me a lot of products to test and review in the past. One of the machines they sent me in the past was their MIG200, which is a multi-process welding machine, and I use it primarily to MIG weld a lot. And on this channel, we've been building a 55 Chevy truck, and I've used that welding machine a ton. The MIG200 does MIG, flux, TIG, stick, and has a really cool spot weld feature on it. The machine's been great. It's run flawless and served me perfectly the whole time I've had it. What I've really been looking for is a machine that can do all of that plus high-frequency TIG. Now, some secrets are coming out here. I'm really pretty accomplished when it comes to MIG welding, but when it comes to TIG welding, can't do it at all. Never even tried. Most multi-process machines that feature TIG welding feature what's called lift TIG or scratch start TIG. This has what's called high frequency start. Lift TIG is when you have to take your TIG torch and kind of make contact with the workpiece of the metal that you're welding and lift it up to start. With high frequency start, you can start above your workpiece via a thumb switch or a foot pedal to dial in the current that you want to get the weld just right. For ornamental and decorative metalwork, and especially for custom exhaust work, a machine that's capable of high frequency TIG would be awesome to have in an automotive shop. Aside from all the other features that this machine has, it also features an integral plasma cutter. Guys, if you do classic car restoration or work on cars, those three things alone, having MIG welding capability, a plasma cutter, and high frequency TIG all in one box, to me that signifies this could be the last and only machine that you'll ever need in a shop like this. A huge benefit for guys like me who don't have a tremendous shop and you're limited on space, and I could just carry around one machine that does everything. All right, to be honest with you, this machine covers so much stuff. We're not gonna get into every single aspect of it and try every different setting and cut all these different types of metal. This is a car channel, and even though Arccaptain's been very cool to me and they sent me this machine to try and to test out, I gotta stay true to my viewers and do car stuff. So we're gonna open this up, we're gonna go through it, I'm gonna show you everything that comes with, and then we're gonna use the MIG feature and the plasma cutter feature to build something for this truck. All right, let's crack it open. All right, guys, look at everything that came in this first accessory box. You've got rollers, contact tips, extra MIG gun parts, extra control parts. They give you the regulator. You've got your MIG gun with extra contact tips and a wrench. You've got the TIG torch with the paddle switch on it, tungsten consumable pack that would go for your TIG torch. You've got your plasma cutter torch, extra tips. You've got a clean feature on this machine, which is something I've not had any experience with, I think is really cool. A gas hose, stick welding stinger. You've got your ground lead, of course, and something I think really cool. I know it's just the small things in life, but they give you a cover for the machine itself. I know a cover's not a big deal, but when you work in an automotive shop that gets really dirty and really dusty, you'd be amazed at the crap and crud that gets collected on all of my machines and all of my parts. It's a never-ending cleaning disaster in this shop. So just that little extra step of having a cover to protect your expensive machinery is something that I really appreciate. Thank you, Arccaptain, for thinking ahead of that. All right, so here's the machine itself. It seems to be that we have a redesigned package. Feels a little bit more solid, a little bit more robust. Got an interesting shape to it. Turning around to the back first, we'll look at the side that people care about the least. Got our on-off switch, and we've got two inlets here, one for our MIG gas or our C25, and then this port here shares an inlet that says cut and TIG. So I guess we're gonna have our air going in there, and you have to switch between that and if you want to use your argon for TIG welding. I'm wondering if I could put a splitter in here and have two hoses. Just while they've redesigned a lot, it seems they're still using the smaller diameter power cord, and mine is apparently been pinch drilled bad right there in the insulation is broken. So I'm gonna be changing that out. They'll probably void my warranty, but I'd like to put a nice 10 gauge cord in here. Lastly, it looks like we have dual cooling fans. Okay, so on the front we have our screen. We have some scroll knobs to change the input features. Looks like we have a USB port. I'm guessing this machine's firmware can be upgraded. We got different control inputs for different whips. We have our MIG gun input. We have our positive and negative DINS connections here. And it looks like we have our air input right here for our plasma cutter. Coming to our slide door, we got a different style handle here, which, ooh, I kind of like that, that's new. We can see we've got our air regulator here for our plasma cutter. There's no pressure gauge on top or at the side, so I'm wondering if that's gonna be revealed on the screen when we power it up. Drive roll assembly here. This appears to be composite, although it feels pretty solid. I would have liked to have seen a metal drive roll assembly. And you've got the obligatory chart here for reference on the inside of the door. They also carried over the LED light on the inside of the door compartment, which is a really cool feature that I like a lot. So these soft buttons on the side kind of correspond to some icons here on the screen. This top one here, you can select between your function, 2T, 4T, and spot. Spot weld is a really cool feature for doing body panels and stuff like that. We're gonna set ours to 2T for right now. Really cool, you can select between your continuous MIG or pulse MIG if you want. We're gonna be on continuous. Now they've got this arrow button here, and that's kind of used to scroll between a lot of the other icons that you see on the screen. If you don't touch anything, it then reverts back to the previous screen. Saved. Ooh, it talks to me in a cool British accent too. Parameter saved. There you go, honey. Now right here, you notice it says 235 volts. That's because we are plugged into a 240 outlet. But they do give you an adapter if you want to plug into 110 if you don't have 240 available. It does auto sense, obviously, so we're plugged into 240 and that's what it shows. Now using the mode button, we would go through here. We were previously on MIG, now it's on spool gun MIG. Moving over again. Please pull out the adapter. Wow, she's very intuitive. Scrolling over, we're on high frequency TIG, lift TIG, plasma cut, the clean function, and stick welding. This button here lets you select the different inputs for gas types. We're gonna stay on mix since we're gonna be using 75-25 mixed gas for MIG welding. Parameter saved. A lot of this is pretty self-explanatory. This is going to be for your wire diameter. We're going to be welding on 030 today. Pressing this button lets us select between the synergistic mode and manually selecting our wire feed and voltage. When you're on your plasma cutter selection, you come over here to your gas button. You hear that relay click? That's how you're going to check your PSI. So another thing I want to point out to you guys, it's got this kind of cool LED going across the top, which is a green color. It's not just to look pretty, guys. It's actually because if your polarity is not correct or your machine's not set correctly and you pull it out, the adapter polarity is reversed. Now it's telling you that when I went into DC negative over here, it turned to yellow, says that we're not ready, and it wants you to change it back to positive, which is kind of intuitive and really cool if you're a beginner. Please connect the adapter to the positive. There you go. All right, she's a little bossy, but that's all right. Anyway, it turned back to green, so letting you know everything's good to go. Please pull out the adapter. Moving over to lift TIG, same thing. Plasma cut, same thing. Telling you it's not ready to do plasma cutting. It is ready for the clean function and is not ready for the stick function because, again, we have to change our polarity over. So this machine does accept the big spools. You can use the little spools as well. The big spool fit is a little bit tight, but it did fit in there just fine. All right, so we've got our MIG gun set up, we've got our ground lead set up. Then I went down to the Home Depot and cobbled together some fittings for my air line here. They give you this bushing with a gas fitting that has kind of a barb that sticks out of the end, but you have to kind of hack up your hose, and I don't really want to do that. So this is a 5/8 UNF fitting, and then obviously your standard air chuck is a 1/4 inch NPT, and there's not a lot of readily available adapters in that configuration. I do have one inbound. I just ordered on Amazon real quick, but it won't be here till tomorrow. So for the sake of this video, I had to just kind of put something together. So what I did was I just got an adapter here and a bushing here that goes from that to our 1/4 inch NPT, and then I just put my regular air chuck in and we're good to go. The air compressor's on, we're holding pressure, everything seems good, so that'll work out just fine for the video. All right, so our machine is all set up and ready to go. Let me show you today's project, what we're working on. So here's our bench seat. It's out of a OBS Chevy truck. So I've got it flipped upside down here, and obviously this bench seat is just not ready to go yet. We haven't rebuilt it. But what I want to do is take the frame off of the seat itself and just work with the frame in the cab of the truck, just so that it's a lot easier to work with. Pretty loose as it was. And like that with 4 bolts, we're off and a lot easier to work with. All right, so we put a bench sheet frame in the truck. One thing we got to do now is mark these holes right here so we get some holes drilled in the cab floor. All right, so with the holes drilled in the floor, what I really want to do now is come up with a bracket that's underneath because I don't really trust my life to that thin sheet metal. So I'm going to take some 3/16 flat stock and make kind of a bar that goes underneath the cab of the truck and weld some studs to it so that it comes up there. It's kind of a large washer, if you will. It'll sit there underneath the cab with studs welded to the top of it that'll pop through, and we can bolt our sheet down to that. Now, by doing it that way, it'll spread the load out across a larger area on the floor, and it'll be just a way more secure mounting solution. All right, guys, let's try the plasma cutter out. Well, that was no problem at all. All right, we need one more piece. That's 2. All right, so I want to show you guys something. There's a little bit of dross right here on the piece that we cut from. Comes right off. But on our work piece that we cut off, that is super clean. There's nothing on there. Minimal cleanup with the flap disc, man. I'm really happy about that. All right, let's check this from the top first. Make sure we fit. And we do. It's not going all the way down because the nuts are there, but that fits in perfectly. So when I make another one of these, and what my plan is to take it over the bench. I'm going to weld this from the back side, just like that. This will then be on the underside of the cab coming up, and we'll seam seal it down to the cab. I don't want to weld it to the cab because this metal is super thin and I don't want to put any more heat to it. Plus, welding upside down, I'm going to have to weld to the thicker metal and have it kind of drip onto the thinner metal, and when it's upside down, it's not really going to be very possible. And again, I just really don't want to put any more heat in this really thin stuff. So if I sandwich it with some seam sealer in between, it'll also keep moisture from getting in there and rusting this out prematurely, even though I'm going to paint it. The seam sealer is not really meant to be a long-term fastener. The bolt and the nut clamping down on top of the bench sheet, that's my mechanical fastening, so don't look at the seam sealer as a means of security. It's really just to keep water out from that and to give me a temporary hold so that it doesn't fall through when I put the seat on it. This machine has a really cool feature that I should tell you guys about. It's not going to be applicable to me at this moment because I'm going to be welding right here at the bench, but it has Bluetooth capability. And if you download an app and say you're welding in the bed of a pickup truck, strike an arc, and the arc is not right, and you want to adjust your settings, you can take your smartphone right out of your pocket and adjust the welding machine while not having to leave the bed of the pickup or wherever it is that you are and walk over to your welding machine. How cool is that? So we're going to try these settings, 245 inches per minute at 19.4 volts. That's what I usually like for 3/16. Every machine is different. Let's see how it welds. Man, that's pretty good right out of the gate. Wow. I'm going to play with it a little bit more. I'm not really sure I need to adjust that, actually. It's looking really good just how it is. good penetration. That's exactly what we want to see. We're not blowing through the end of it, but you can definitely see that heat penetration mark, which is what we're looking for. Tried a different weave right there. Didn't like it too much, but the weld is fantastic. I'm going to stick with what I know. These are coming out great. So the one on the right was the first one. The one on the left was the second one. The one in the middle there is where I just tried that different weave, where it was just something different I wanted to try. So I haven't quite figured out how to weld bolt heads and actually make them look pretty, like how I can weld the bead up nice. However, I can make them nice and secure, and I know that those are never coming out. All right, so here's our completed parts. I'm gonna put my wife in the cab, send it up in the air. I'll take these down below, send it up through the bottom through these two holes. I'll put some seam sealer on here, and I'll have her thread on a couple nuts just to fasten it in place and hold that seam sealer up against the cab floor. All right, there you go. All right, so Mrs. In the Shop TV was a huge help there. Sometimes it helps us to have a couple extra arms. So I'm not actually gonna bolt that base down to the floor yet, but I am gonna lay it down on top of those studs just to make sure that it fits within the holes. I'm not gonna bolt it down yet because I want that seam sealer to dry up. Also, this bench sheet is obviously not complete, so it's just gonna be in the way and have to come in and out of here 100 times. So I'm just gonna make sure it fits over those bolt holes and then remove the bench sheet altogether. That'll work. So we used 1.5 inch bolts on that plate. I figured between the width of the floor itself, the width of the seat bracket itself, the size of the nut, the spring washer, the washer, and all that. To add on top of that, this cab is going to be a nightmare with the center console and everything here to get our carpet in. So I wanted to have plenty of bolt threads sticking up to be able to mark the top of the carpet with a razor blade and get them to poke through, and still have plenty of thread engagement when I go to actually bolt down the seat. Another pro of doing it that way is just in case when we're really close to getting this truck done, if I want to raise that seat up a little bit higher, I still have some thread where I can put some washers or shims underneath it and to be able to get a little bit of additional height should I need it. So the machine welded absolutely perfectly. I had no complaints whatsoever. Plasma cutter was effortless. Now the plasma cutter is not pilot arc, it is contact tip, meaning that you have to make contact with the surface to initiate your arc. Now, the thing I do like about that is that it is beginner friendly. With a pilot arc machine, you have to maintain a very specific distance off that metal. It's kind of a feel that you got to get down. They sell guards to make it easier, like cheater bars or whatever you want to call it. Generally, there's a little bit more skill involved with a pilot arc machine. Much less so with a machine like this. Put the tip on the metal, strike your arc, make your cut, you're good to go. I'm really excited that it does high frequency TIG because I am going to teach myself on this channel to learn how to TIG weld, and I am going to use this machine to do it. You guys got to promise not to laugh at me when I really screw up in the beginning though. They clearly packed a whole lot of features into a very small machine. Some of the capabilities of this machine are really cool and like way over my head. When it comes to cleaning, you know, that's basically, from what I understand, when you have contamination or those oxides that build up on top of the weld, that kind of brownish color and all that, buy a solution, dip the little brush in there and switch over to the clean function. And then you wipe that down and then it kind of like electrically charges that solution and it takes all that oxide off so that you don't get any rust that ever comes back. That's basically the long and short of how the clean function works. It will really make for a much cleaner, much prettier weld appearance. The spot weld feature, we're gonna be seeing that pretty soon here. I've been talking about it a lot with their other machine that I tested, which was the MIG200. Basically, when we showed you in the beginning where there's 2T, 4T, and spot, if you set it to spot, you can set the duration of the weld. So let's just say you make it half a second. Now, when you're welding auto body stuff and you've got that really thin sheet metal, you can't run a continuous bead because you'll blow a hole right through it. So what you have to do is lay a series of little tacks. Then you start filling them in little by little, moving the heat around so you don't warp anything. In the past, you would just kind of time that little tack that you do and try to get that same little bead profile on every single tack that you make so that when you're grinding it all down to get that smooth surface, it doesn't take forever and you don't wind up digging into the parent metal underneath it. With the spot feature, you set the predetermined weld times and every little tack that lays down is going to be the exact same size and shape, which is a huge, huge benefit when you're doing auto body and thin metal stuff. I don't really do much stick welding, but it's nice that it has that feature. Again, I love that it's not just lift TIG. I love that there's actual high frequency start TIG also. That's awesome. Most notable, I will say, is that from the second I pulled the trigger, the first weld that I initiated with this thing laid down a really, really good looking bead, and I didn't put a whole lot of effort into it. In all honesty, it makes me that much better of a welder because I'm able to lay down that much better of a weld. I didn't mess with the settings too much. The first setting I dialed in happened to be right on the money. I noticed the settings on the door card are a little bit funny. They're not what I would choose to weld with. In fact, they're really on the hot side. Complaints, I'd really like to see an additional port on the back. You know, you have the two ports, one for the MIG gas, one for the TIG gas, and I'd really like to see a third one that's like an air chuck, dedicated just for the air, because I'm gonna have to put a splitter on that TIG/air input. And that's fine, it's not really a big deal. I'm just kind of nitpicking because they wanna hear my feedback and this is what I have to say. So I would definitely like a third gas inlet. And again, every welding machine that I've ever reviewed and tested on this channel that's at a lower price point, they always use a very thin diameter cord. And I know that copper costs a lot of money nowadays, everything costs a lot of money nowadays, but man, I wouldn't mind paying for that in the price of the machine. I'd really like to see a little bit beefier of a cord in there. Not a deal breaker, especially when you're not doing heavy duty all day long production welding. It's really not that big of a deal. I'm just nitpicking and I'm just saying what I'd like to see. The MIG gun felt great, nice and ergonomic, welded great, have no complaints there. It uses the Tweco style consumables, so they're readily available anywhere. Home Depot, Harbor Freight, Northern Tools, Amazon, you name it, you need it, you can go pick it up right away. Can this be the only machine that you need in an automotive shop? Yeah, I think it might fit that bill pretty good actually, because you got the plasma cutter, which is something that we're gonna use all the time. And man, I love using a plasma cutter. The days of me using an angle grinder and cutting every piece of metal with that, those days are gone. The plasma cutter kind of took over. So having a plasma cutter with a MIG welder and a TIG welder, man, I mean, those three functions alone in one machine in a shop where you do automotive work. So yeah, absolutely. I think it could be the only machine that you might ever need if you do this kind of work. Well, I want to thank Arccaptain for sponsoring this video. I really like the machine, guys. Thank you so much. I want to thank each and every one of you for sticking around and watching it. Do me a favor, smash that like button. It really helps this channel out. It's free and it doesn't cost you a dime. So hook me up, hit that like button. I'd really appreciate it. If you're not a subscriber and you like this kind of content, I'd love to have you here. So please hit that subscribe button. If you have questions about the 55 Chevy truck, let me know. If you have questions about this machine, let me know. Or any other welding machine, I'll be happy to answer them for you guys. Thanks so much for being here again. And as always, until next time, I'll see you in the shop.